With today's new high megapixel cameras and shooting speeds up to 20 to 40 frames per second, storing all that data is a major concern, especially if you're shooting video and stills. Filling up your computer's 1 to 2 terabyte hard drive on most of your new computers can happen very quickly, not to mention backing up all those files so we don't accidentally have an accident and lose them. So what options do we have to solve this dilemma, and what have I found to solve this dilemma for myself? Well, let's talk about it. Storage and backups, two things photographers we don't really want to have to mess with. But with the large data files we're generating with these newer cameras, it's something we're going to have to deal with. So what are our options for storage? So the first drive we'll talk about is a hard disk drive, or HD drive for short. And in the past, these are sufficient for us, and they still work fine if you're editing just stills and storing on this thing, and it's fairly inexpensive. And what's the drawback? Well, it's the read and write speeds. These guys are about 80 to 160 megabytes a second, which is really, really slow. And we get impatient waiting on anything anymore in this day and age, especially with these large files we're moving. And again, these will work fine for stills, but you'll be waiting a long time to offload your SD cards, what I'm getting to, with a HDD drive. So the next option would be a solid-state drive, an SSD for short. And that's what most of us are using today and for the last few years. And the prices of these have come down a lot. Now, the read and write speed is either like 500 megabytes a second for some of these, up to 1,000 megabytes is what most of mine are running at 1,000 megabytes a second. These speeds are fantastic, and they'll work both for video at 4K and editing your stills. So these drives are great. So what are the drawbacks using external SSDs? Well, it's the size of the storage versus price. With the HDDs, we can have a lot more storage for a cheaper price, but they're slow. These faster drives, the solid-state drives, once you get past 2 terabytes, they start getting really, really expensive. That's why most of your laptops that you buy anymore are, 500 to 1 terabyte to maybe 2 terabytes, and it starts really jumping from there. And most of us are going to buy the 1 or 2 terabyte versions of these SSDs, and they run from anywhere from about $90 to $125 per terabyte. So when you get the 2 terabyte ones, they're usually about $250, but you can find them if you keep looking. You can find these for about $150 on sale, which is again about $75 a terabyte, which is pretty good. Personally, I burn through about 1 terabyte a month on my photography and my video needs, along with my footage for this channel. And that's with culling a lot of images and deleting quite a bit of the B-roll footage that I use all the time in these videos. So I'm culling a lot of footage, and I'm still burning through 1 terabyte a month on these guys. So I basically have a stack of these guys. I mean, there's 3 of these T7s, 3 of the SanDisk drives, there's 2 more of these Samsung T7 Shields. I will steer you against these guys. What I found on the 2 or 3 that I've bought, all of them, and the couple my uncle has bought even of these T7 Shielded, because it's for around Christmas, these were on sale for about $125, $130 a pop. So we bought several of them. This USB female port here gets loose, so unless you've got a really thick USB-C cord to stick in this, they will not stay in there. So any bit you jostle this guy, that cable wiggles a little bit, and you lose connection to your PC, and it's very, very annoying. So I would steer clear of these T7 Shielded, in my opinion. If you're going to get the Samsung, get the regular T7s. And the SSD that I'd probably suggest the most out of all these is the SanDisk Extreme 2. These drives are pretty weather sealed. They're pretty tough. I haven't had them tear up. They are really nice, and they don't slide a lot on things either. They're not real slick like these T7s, just slide around everywhere. But these have worked really well. The USB ports work really well. I haven't got them messed up, gummy. Actually, I've had none of my SSD externals fail. I've had a laptop SSD fail before, but like I said, these are my favorite ones. These are the ones that go in the field with me all the time, especially if I know I'm going to be close to anything with dirt, grime, or moisture. These go with me. So what are some of the other drive options that are out there for external drive options? Well, there's the personal home cloud type things like the Western Digital, little My Passport, things like that. Those are way too slow. They're using, HDDs, these platter drives, so they're just, in serial, so they're 80 megabytes a second is about all they're getting. So really, those type drives are back to the HDD solution, which is just too slow. So what else is available? Well, we have two options really for photo and video editing solutions. So with photo, you can get down to the 250 mark on megabytes per second and do fine with editing heavier stuff. But again, the transfer speed coming from your camera into these drives is going to hurt you. So you want to be above 500 megabytes to 1,000. Really, 1,000 is really want to be, at that mark. That's where you can really do 8K. But 500 will get you to 5K editing and almost all of your stitching and stuff for photos quite well as far as read and write speed both ways. So there's two options with those things in mind. And that's running from anything running a 10 terabyte solution all the way up to 100 plus terabyte solutions. And they are what we call a NAS and a DAS. So the NAS is network attached solution and the DAS is direct attached solution. And they're exactly what they sound like, network and direct. Both of these systems use RAID array of drives in the form of up to 2 drives, up to 16 drive bays. So you can put that many hard drives in there. And they use either HDD or SSD. And of course, SSD drives would be faster, but they'll be more expensive the larger capacity you get. And so when you use these RAID arrays, you actually get better speeds by using a RAID array. A quick breakdown of the speeds for RAID arrays is about 500 to 600 megabytes of a RAID 5 and 1,000 megabytes on a RAID 0. And you'll probably use RAID 5 in most cases because of drive failure. So if one drive fails in a RAID 5, you can just swap that drive up and put another one in. If you use RAID 0, it's all toast. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get along and talk a little bit more about this. So I don't want to get too far in the weeds. We'll try to keep it up here where you can think about these solutions for yourself. So what are the quick pros and cons of each of these type of systems? So first we'll talk about a NAS. So a NAS is basically just a computer turned into a network storage server. That's all it does. It just, you connect to it and access data. And the only way to access that data is through your network, which means how good is your Wi-Fi router? And the pros of this is you can achieve the top speeds of 500 or 1,000, depending on which type of RAID array you're using. You can access your data from any PC that can attach to the network, even through cloud technology with a lot of them, where you can hit it from, say you're off in another town. If you can network back into it, you can retrieve your files off of that. Again, you can use it for multiple PCs, so that's what's kind of the allure to a NAS. Now, what's the cons of using a NAS? Well, how fast is your network at your house or what you're using? Let's do a breakdown on it. So most of the people, just like me, I have a 1 gigabyte Ethernet set up on my home network. Well, that's 80 to 120 megabytes a second. So you're not going to hit that 500,000 because you're bottlenecked by your network in your house. If you have a 2.5 gigabyte Ethernet, which is people are moving to, that's still only 250 megabytes a second. You're not going to be able to edit video higher. Using stills in Lightroom, you should be okay, but editing or transferring files is going to be slower. Remember, 250 megabytes is slower. If you have a 10 gigabyte Ethernet network, you can get up to 600 to 1,000. You can theoretically hit that 1,000 mark, but the 600 mark will be good enough for you to be able to do full 4K video editing and multicams, which mean multi-streams at the same time. So that 10 gigabyte would be good. So the issue may be you have to upgrade your router to 10 gigabyte Ethernet, as most of us just have 1 gigabyte like I would. And you're only going to achieve those speeds with the NAS or network type solution if you're using an Ethernet cable plugged into your computer. And of course, if I have a MacBook Pro, that means I would have to go buy a Ethernet to a Thunderbolt 3 adapter. And I think those are $100 or $200 right there just for the adapter. So there's a lot of things you have to think about to get these speeds with the NAS because it's a network attached storage device, which means you're going to be bottlenecked by how fast your network is. No matter how fast your RAID is, if your connection from the RAID to your PC is slower, then you're going to have problems. So that's where the cons are. But again, they're a really good solution because you use for a lot of different computers. And theoretically, you can achieve these higher speeds also that your RAID is supporting. And now on to DAS. So since it's a direct connection from the RAID box to your PC by a cable, you're only bottlenecked by two types of things. One is what type of speed you have your RAID set to, and what type of USB-C type you have for your computer. If you bought a Macintosh in the last couple of years, you should be good. They're running Thunderbolt 3 or Thunderbolt 4, which means you won't have any bottlenecks on your Thunderbolt. But make sure you get a good Thunderbolt cable, a top-notch one. Don't skimp on your cables when you're running data across or power across. If you're running Windows machines, you should again be good because most of those are using USB-C 3.2. If you got one with 3.1, then you may need to worry about it. But again, PCs in the last couple of years have USB 3.2 in them, so you shouldn't have a bottleneck there going to your direct access storage. So what are the cons of a DAS? Well, it's a one PC setup. It's not a network. It's not a cloud solution. Yes, you can share out your drive off your PC to other PCs, but then you're right back to what the NAS is, where you're bottlenecked by how fast is your network to that device. So the cons of this really are it's only for one PC, and it's not going to be cloud-based as far as hitting data and that type of stuff. So what about home backups, a backup in your house of this, whatever solution of drive you want to go with, whatever, the hard drive, SSD, the NAS, the DAS, whatever. To me, really, the NAS and the DAS are the two solutions we need to probably go to as photographers and videographers in this day and age. But you're not going to really have a home backup if you're using 10 plus terabytes, because if you do, you're going to have two NAS solutions or two DAS solutions or a combination of those, because you got to have one here and you got to have another one just as big to back it up with. So that's really not going to happen. So my home backup system is basically any exports I make that go to Instagram, Facebook, or for print. I export those to an SSD because they don't take up a ton of room. And 2 terabyte will probably hold most of my stuff in that regard, because the web stuff is extremely small. The print sizes can get bigger, but they're still not that huge. They're still in the megabyte realm, not the gigabyte realm. And I'll also have another drive that I'll take any crucial video footage that I just don't want to lose, or I just don't want maybe some raw files, like for the bear trip I took. A big chunk of those raw files I may still keep on one of these other secondary, and I keep them separate. I keep one that's just all exported images. I keep another one that's maybe video and raw files I'm going to do. And really, 4 terabytes SSD external will probably head those. And I label those and stick them on a shelf, and they're over there. And with my new solution, all these extra drives I have over here, this 6 or 8 drives I have over here, I think I got about 10 of these things. They'll all be field use for after that, or maybe other backups. It gets longer. And for cloud backups, basically, there's a ton of them out there. There's Google Drive, Backblaze, Carbonite. There's a ton of them. The list just goes on and on. We'll talk more about those cloud backups when I get down to which solution did I choose, and why did I choose it, and why did I choose that type of cloud backup. So what solution did I go to? What did I settle on? Well, in the field, of course, I'm still be using, if I go out for several days and I can't get back to the house, back to my solution or whatever, I can't connect to it, then I'll be putting them on a solid state drive. When I get back to closer to my solution, I can offload these to that solution. And once I'm at home, what did I choose? Well, it's a DAS solution for me. So why? Well, the NAS solution to me was very tempting, but it also meant a lot of extra work and a lot more cash out of my pocket compared to a DAS solution. I need to upgrade my router because I'm on a 1 gigabyte and have to go to 10 gigabyte and have to buy an adapter to go from the NAS into my PC to connect up through the network and those type things. So there'll just be a lot more, and I couldn't rely on just my Wi-Fi due to the 4K editing aspects across Wi-Fi is not really going to work on my daily workload. And the 4K editing needs I'd have would throttle me across that Wi-Fi, and even maybe the network at times if I got too much hitting that going through that router. And I only edit on one laptop, my MacBook Pro M1 Pro 16. It's a little mouthful there too. I edit on this thing only. I don't edit on multiple PCs, so I don't need that extra one. Now, editing across or downloading or retrieving files across the cloud would be nice, but a lot of places that go in Alaska, they don't have great internet service. So that's kind of negating that right there. Because again, we're passing huge files. I'm passing sometimes 100, 300, 400 gigabytes worth of data from video and from stills when I'm out doing something on location somewhere out in the field. So that's just not going to happen with the NAS. The next thing was about backups. So with most cloud service providers for backups, NAS storage is on tier systems by how much terabytes you store in the cloud. With Backblaze, which is the one that I chose for my backups, they also have those tiers for NAS, but for DAS or your personal PC, they have a flat $7 rate for that, but you also need to add another $2 or $3 to it. They don't have that 30-day buffer of not using it. Basically, it works out to be $10 a month, basically. But it's unlimited storage. I could put 300 terabytes up there, and it's fine. Now, restoring that could be, if you got that high, it's going to be a pain in the butt. But if you lost 300 terabytes, you don't care if it's a pain in the butt. You just want it back. And they have different ways to get that data back down to you. So basically, for $10 a month, I can do unlimited storage. It's another plus for going to the DAS for me. So back to the DAS reason a little bit more. It's perfect for single PCUs like we talked about. There's no bottleneck from the RAID type speeds because I'm using Thunderbolt 3 going back and forth. So if I'm at 500, 1000, but I'm going to be using RAID 5, which means I'll be running to 500 to 600. We'll do a speed test here in a minute. So I'll kind of show you what kind of speeds this thing's producing. And that speed is more than enough to do 4K multicam editing, which means I've got multiple cameras stacked in the same timeline right there, running at the exact same time, and that speed will bring that down fine, not a problem. So real quickly, why to use RAID 5 over RAID 0? So a real quick thing about RAID real fast is RAID 0 has no redundancy in it. So if you lose a drive in a RAID 0, all your data is gone. You'll have to go from a backup to and fix whatever drive you've got in that RAID array, then restore from a backup, which could be timely. RAID 5 has a redundant drive in it. So if you have to have at least 3 drives for RAID 5. So let's say you have 3 10 terabyte drives. The storage will be 2/3 of that capacity. If you have 3, if you've got 5 drives, that's 4/5. But you need that extra drive. It's the best way to do it. You can run 4, but it's best to run an odd number of drives because it just works out a lot better. Because basically that odd drive is going to be your parity drive. So if you got 3 10 terabyte drives, you're going to have 20 terabytes in your RAID array available, and that third one is going to be that parity striping across all 3. So if you lose one of those drives, you just pull it out, put a new one in, rebuilds the whole thing, you're good to go. So that's why you use RAID 5. It's half the speed, but that half the speed's enough to do all the editing, especially what I need to do for what I do every day. So what does all this entail? What did I have to buy or set up to make this DAS solution work? I ended up picking up a TerraMaster D5 Thunderbolt 3 RAID enclosure is what I picked up. It's a 5-bay DAS, and I chose 5 8 terabyte drives as they were on sale for about $130 a pop, which is really good, which gives me 32 terabytes of usable storage. The D5 itself ran about $600, and that's due to it's a Thunderbolt model. You can get a USB-C 3.1 enclosures for $300 or 3.2s, and you can get down to a 2-bay enclosure, which is not going to be a RAID array, or you can RAID 0 for about $200 without disk. So you can get them a lot cheaper. I just went a lot higher for the solution because I want this thing to last for a long time. But I also need a Thunderbolt solution, so those are a little bit higher. So the setup was very easy for this thing. After unboxing the enclosure, it was just to unwrap each drive, slide them into the little chassis, pop the little side locks on, then slide them into the enclosure. And voila, the RAID array hardware is set up. Now for the laptop and its setup. This is for Macintosh. PC would be a little easier to set up. There's a little less you have to do in it. But if you have a newer Mac made in the last year or so, years in Monterey, you're going to have to follow some of these steps. So, and they're real easy steps to do. Anybody can do these. So first you reboot your PC. When you reboot it, you hold down the power button up on top until it tells you it's going into a setup mode. When it does that, you're good. From here, all you do is you change security to accept third-party installs. And I'll include a video that walks you real simply through this. It's very, very simple. And it's really easy to do. If I can do it, you can do it. Once you have that set up, you just pop back onto your desktop and you install the TerraMaster driver. And then you connect your D5 into the laptop. After that, you install the RAID Manager software. Don't worry, all you have to do is initial setup on this RAID Manager software and you won't be touching it again ever whatsoever. So you run that RAID Manager software and tell it what type of RAID you want, RAID 0, 5, and there's some others, but I would suggest you pick 5, or if you really want to go faster, run 0. It takes just a couple seconds to configure. I mean, literally about 10 seconds and it's configured. It basically combines all 5 of those disks into an array, of course, with the parity striping out in RAID 5. And in my case, what I did, I ended up with 32 terabytes of usable storage. Just incredible to me. Just great to have that amount of storage. From here, you just want to format this new 32 terabytes of storage into the format you need. For me, it was APFS for Macintosh, and you're done. Now, how I have this TerraMaster D5 set up, running RAID 5 into my PC, I've ran the Blackmagic disk test on this guy and ran it multiple times to see what the write speed is running this across here. And I'm getting consistently 590 megabytes write speed, which is fantastic to me because all I really needed was at least 500, 450 to 500. I was good. And I'm getting almost 600. So that, to me, that's great. I can do all my 4K editing right on this guy. And my read speeds are consistently about 790 megabytes a second, which is great to read these things back off when I'm reading files. So this has more than exceeded my needs, and now I can stop having to continually buying all these guys now. So what did all this cost me? Well, to have the 5 drives in here, $130 a piece, plus the almost around $600, $700 for this, I got about $1,300 into this, and I got 32 terabytes of RAID running more than fantastic speeds on this guy. If I bought the same amount of drives, which would be 16 of these, it's going to run anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 to have the same amount of storage that this guy has. And I don't have to keep buying these things all the time. And I have enough of these now laying around that I can move all the files off I need of these and get these down to 0 and use these for field use or for backup use. So that's my main thing to do now, is to get all this off there. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I just wanted to share you my solution for a larger terabyte solution, in my case 32 terabytes, which I'm just over the moon about. I've edited my last 6 videos off this thing and it's gone off without a hitch, and I'm not noticing any problems taking my SD card into this thing and then editing my videos, my stills off of it. If you're like me, somebody's tired of buying these things all the time, this larger terabyte solution is so much nicer. And another thing that's nice is when I went to grab all these drives off my desk to show the drives that I have here, I couldn't find one of them. They're all numbered. I noticed I was missing a number, and then I eventually found it. So you can lose these real easy. And then finding files on these, like which files on which drive. I've got them numbered and got a catalog on them, but I still got to go back to the laptop, figure, okay, drive 3, what's on it. With this new system, I don't have to do that. It's all here. So once I get all this old stuff transferred on this thing, it's going to be so much nicer. And like I said, it's saving me $2,000 to $3,000 if I had to buy all these little 2 terabyte drives instead of having this guy right here. So just fantastic. So I hope this helps you. I hope it helps you if you need larger storage, if you want to go with DAS. In my solution, DAS work great. If you need the network solution, there's plenty of videos out there about that too. So again, guys, until the next video, you guys stay safe, go run that shutter. Oh, and I've probably got about 3 videos or more that's going to be coming out next week, so get ready for that. All right, take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.